I've got two amazing people here who need no introduction. And today's Monday, and I came in and I said to these guys, I thought this was their day off, but actually they're working after they've done all of this with us. It's a really intense play, and I just wondered how on earth you'd managed to do that day in, day out, and still give it, the best possible shot.
I found with this play, it has lingered, and you never know, residually what it's taking out of you. You never are aware, what is, how your body is affected, obviously by the tiredness of the physical stuff, but of the, emotionally as well. Your body doesn't know you're lying, and you are putting it through these traumatic events, to the best of your abilities in terms of the truth of it. So yeah, I do. You get to the end of a run of plays that I've done where they have they had a greater emotional heft, and you do feel slightly wiped out by it. And all the way through, you're probably thinking, "No, I'm fine. I'm just tired physically." But I think actually the emotional effect does build.
And Anne-Marie?
When you're inside of something, you have to truly believe you're inside of it. But at the same time, there still has to be that membrane saying, "This isn't really my experience." So it's a kind of tightrope that you walk. It's interesting, because you want people to know that you're heartbroken, or you're grieving, or you're whatever. You want people to buy it. You don't want people to go, "Oh, that's very clever. Isn't that very clever the way they look like they are?" You want people to just forget and go, "Oh my God, I feel that too sometimes."
Were these two parts that you long wanted to play, or when you come to acting when you were younger, did you think, "Oh, it would be wonderful to play this part"?
Generally, my career has been a surprise. So, I guess in the back of your head, you thought about, playing big parts, but you never took it for granted or presumed that anyone was going to ask you. What I wanted to do when I was young, and I used to come here as a boy, was work here. This is what I thought acting meant. And this is where I thought I saw the best stuff and where I got inspired to act. So obviously to be able to play these, hugely challenging and engaging and exhausting roles in the place that you first were inspired to become an actor is a huge privilege.
And Anne-Marie, for you with Lady Macbeth, was that a role that you came to feeling worried or anxious or intimidated by, or could you identify with her?
Yeah, weirdly, I can. I had played Lady Macbeth before a few years ago, but not in London. I played it in New York, so I had been a wee bit inside her head before, but I'd always been very angry about the way that people perceive her and how she's become a sort of, a reference point for a certain kind of female behavior. It makes me really angry, and because I know the play, and people generally use that. They'll accuse a woman that they think is the dark shadows behind a man as being very Lady Macbeth or whatever. She's just some excuse for his bad behaviour, which isn't what Shakespeare writes at all. And they really are Bonnie and Clyde. They're in it together, and as Rory pointed out actually earlier on, they both have a real sense of morality. And so I was very interested in that, and also, Shakespeare lets us know that they are parents grieving. She talks about having nursed a baby. We know that they've lost a child just from tiny things that are said. And so I'm also fascinated by the way people behave when they're inside grief and things that they will do to have a sense of future or to stay alive themselves. It'd be great to sit in a therapist's chair.
And do you think it's important when you play a role like this, and a role so big, that you need to be able to identify with a character in some way? Like you find a way to be like them, or find a way there is something in you that's similar to them? Or is it, in order to really live it? Or are you just such a great actor that you can put it on and then just put it away?
Just give me the boots. I do tend to find I have to find where the character sits in me. We've all got the capability to be billions of different people, and we've all got we've all had the potential to live a billion different lives according moment to moment, the decisions or the effects that life have taken on us. So, I don't want to be myself in every role, whoever that is. But I can feel when something slots in, and when you're forcing it.
It's about asking, really, really honest with yourself about your behaviour, about the way you think, about the way you feel, and there's a kindness in that then, isn't there? And saying, when in your interpretation, you're not judging. You have to kind of love Richard III if you're playing him, and that's weird. Or even Myra Hindley, and that's weird. But in order for you to tell the story well and properly, you do, don't you? You have to go there, and make them have a truth. Because if there's no truth inside, who cares?
Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like when you first start working together and rehearsing, and you're trying on these characters for size for yourselves, but also to ensure that they work together? And actually, when I came in, these two, they were actually genuinely close friends. They were chatting away to each other about their children and other things. No, they really are. And it was really hard to get a word in edgeways, but I managed it after a while. But you two are such good friends, and you said you knew each other a little bit before. But what's it like when you come to a play like this you have to do for weeks on end, almost every night, twice a day sometimes, and sort of trying the characters and sort of having your own dynamics between you as well. Tell us a little bit about what that process feels like and how you get through it.
It's funny, I think you learn very quickly, actually, how easy it's going to be with somebody. It becomes apparent quite quickly, doesn't it, I think? That I knew so early on in rehearsals, obviously Rory is a brilliant actor, but just that he's so open and easy to play with, and I felt you kind of have to be each other's parachutes, when you're playing big emotional stuff, so that you can leap off and the other one will be there for you. And that happened very, very quickly for me with this play. I never doubted that we would have a good time together.
I've never really
liked Anne-Marie Duff.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. A bit rude she finished my sentence for me, but that's what I was going to say. I don't like saying publicly or admitting to that parts I want to play, because you don't end up playing them. Or you don't necessarily want a director to go, oh yeah, I'd like to do it with him, rather than, because I want it to come for a director wanting to do the play. But in my head, I'd wanted to play this part, and I'd always wanted to do it with Anne-Marie. And we got really fortunately paired together to do a scene of it on the telly for a gala thing at the RSC a couple of years ago. And I thought I'd chance my arm and say, would you ever want to do this? And she said, well, I've already done it. I thought, well, there goes that chance. But I lured her in. So I thought, I better be really good in this scene. When she, when Rufus then came and said, how about doing the play? And I said, can we do it with Anne-Marie? And she said yes. That was kind of, I know Rufus really well, and I thought his imaginative capabilities being brought on this play in particular, I didn't have any worries.
And here's a segue from your relationship to Lady Macbeth and Macbeth's relationship. How would you describe that? I mean, I know there's some students, some sixth formers perhaps in the audience today. It's a GCSE question, isn't it? An A-level question. How would you describe that relationship?
I always feel that they really love the bones of each other. And they've been through so much together. But they're sort of it's that thing, isn't it? If you talk about them as being grieving parents, they imagine what their life would be, let's say, and their relationship would be, and then suddenly there's a huge vacuum there. And what does it get filled with? They're sort of trying to find this sense of their together future, aren't they? But unfortunately, of course, it becomes so fractured. But so I know that Rufus was really keen on that there being no doubt that they loved each other, and it kind of being the spinal column of the play in a way was their relationship.
I think it's the trajectory of the play in some ways, if it's going to be affecting or sad, is to see the breakdown of a marriage, of a couple that loved each other, and maybe at the end realise that they still did, or at least Macbeth is afforded the time to realise that her death, his response to her death is to say, I begin to be aweary of the sun. He gives up on life as after she does. And they spend very little time with each other in it. And you see them together just before the murder of Duncan. And then you see them together, alone together, sometime after it. And the difference between those scenes is the beginning of their marital disintegration as well as their own mental disintegration. And that thing of, if we do this, if we kill Duncan, it are not only our lives and our material lives potentially, but our togetherness. Will we be happy again? Particularly in a world in which there must be so little happiness, and obviously the loss of a child as well. That sense of, what can we do to find happiness? Will this be it? Will status or safety, or will people looking after us, will that give us happiness? And of course, that provides them with this great moment of togetherness before the murder, which they never have again.
I've just got a final question for you guys. And I started by saying, please do tweet tonight. And I was wondering this afternoon, what it's like for you as actors, to be dealing with living in the age of social media and Twitter. And we were saying backstage 20 or 30 years ago, if you wanted to not read newspapers or read reviews, you didn't have to. But how do you deal with that, the fact that when we live much more publicly and much more intimately and publicly now than we did before? So if there's a good, a bad, or a mixed review, it's there, and you've got, the people have got direct access to you. Although, of course, the two of you don't have Twitter accounts.
That's one way of avoiding it.
That's it. You don't let them in that way. Keep your doors locked, and you don't Google, and you just avoid in a different way. That's the curious thing about the internet, isn't it? It's given us so many things, but at the same time, we're looking at the mental welfare of young people, and we're really looking into that now, and the whole notion of trolling and all of these things. And sometimes people en masse love something, and sometimes they don't. And it can be to do with the timing. It can be to do with lots of factors of which you have no control. All you can focus on is the heart of something, and know that you're all in it. You're all doing your best to tell the story the best way that you feel is possible at this moment in time. And sometimes that will click, and sometimes it won't. You look at Pinter, one of our greatest playwrights, and yet, terrible reviews when his plays were first performed. So what are you going to do?
An art is so subjective. One
Art
person
is
might
so
love
subjective,
it,
and
another
again,
won't.
to do with timing and fashion and all of those things. And at times we're meant to hear certain stories, and at other times we're not. And it's an interesting thing. You just got to engage with your heart, aren't you, in life? Because it's the same with all of us every day, isn't it? The way we exist in the world. You can't live your life worrying too much about what everybody will think. Gosh, you go bonkers.
We do have to wrap up now, I'm afraid, but please do give them a round of applause.